We're going to begin. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the May 25th, 2016 meeting of the Rotterdam Town Board. Ms. Marco, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Christo is absent.
Yes.
Mr. Lamore?
Present.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Present.
Mr. Villano?
Present.
Mr. Tomaso?
Present.
4 present, 1 absent.
Okay. Please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roz, would you lead us in the pledge? She didn't hear me. Andrea, would you lead us in the
Yes,
pledge?
absolutely. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Deputy Supervisor Chris Tu is absent this evening. We entered executive session this evening approximately 5:41 p.m. With Councilmember Villano making a motion, Councilmember Larmore seconding the motion, all voted in favor of entering executive session at 5:41 p.m. We discussed an employee matters 5/25/2016 grievance and White Birch Gardens versus the town litigation matter. And we exited executive session at 6:17 p.m. with a motion by Councilmember Miller Herrera and a second by Councilmember Larmore, all voted in favor of exiting executive session again at 6:17. We then came here into the meeting room and met with the Parks Committee. They did a phenomenal job of coming up with a report and some photographs of the condition of our parks, and I don't think that didn't go off all the way. I'm staring and I feel a light staring back at me. I think it's off, but I'm going to keep this here just in case it's. Under Supervisor's report, I just want to again mention publicly the events that are happening in town over the next couple of weeks. On Thursday, May 26th at 6:30 p.m., the 56th annual Town of Rotterdam Memorial Day Parade will be leaving from Mahonison School and ending here at Town Hall. On May 30th, 2016, Monday, at 2:30 p.m., we will have our 56th annual Rotterdam Memorial Day service here at Town Hall. Again, Monday at 2:30 p.m. And on Monday, June 13th, 2016 at 6 p.m., the annual Rotterdam Elks Flag Day Parade, again leaving from Mahonison and this time ending over at the Elks Club on Prairie Road. That is at 6 o'clock. Ms. Marco, we have a public hearing. Would you please read the public hearing for us?
Sure. To amend Chapter 266, Vehicles and Traffic, 26647, Schedule 7, Yield Intersections, and 26646, Schedule 6, Stop Intersections of the Code of the Town of Rotterdam as follows. Repeal all language in Vehicles and Traffic, 26647, Schedule 7, Yield Intersections requiring a yield sign on Melrose Street at the intersection of Ford Avenue. Amend Vehicles and Traffic 26646, Schedule 6, Stop Intersections to include the installation of a stop sign in both directions of traffic on Ford Avenue at the intersection Melrose intersection and a stop sign on Melrose Street at the intersection of Ford Avenue. No new sign.
Okay, we don't have anyone to speak on that public hearing. Any of the council members have anything they'd like to say regarding this amendment? Okay, hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Public hearing 1 is closed. Move on to public comment privilege of the floor. Do we have anyone for that? I'm starting to feel lonely. Okay. Okay, we don't have anything for public comment privilege of the floor, so we will move into the resolutions. Ms. Marco, 13916, please.
Appoint individuals to various seasonal summer positions in the Parks Department effective Tuesday, May 31st, 2016.
May I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Miller Herrera. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Villano. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo is absent. Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Yes.
Mr. Tomaso?
Yes.
4 yes.
Okay, resolution 13916 passes. Resolution 14016.
Appoint and reappoint individuals to seasonal positions in the Parks and Recreation Summer Program effective Monday, June 27, 2016.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Councilmember Valano, may I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Larimore. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo is absent. Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
4 yes.
Okay, Resolution 14016 passes. Resolution 14116.
Call for public hearing to be held on Wednesday, June 8, 2016 at 7 p.m. at the John F. Kerwin Government Center, Town Hall, 1100 Sunrise Boulevard, Rotterdam, New York, 12306, upon adoption of a proposed local law of the year 2016 for the following purpose: to amend Chapter 112 Electrical Inspections 112-5 Authorization of Inspectors to include Northeast Electrical Inspections and 112.7 Application for Inspection and Certificate of Compliance required of the Code of the Town of Rotterdam, New York to include Northeast Electrical Inspection, LLC, and New York Atlantic Inland Incorporated, and to remove New York Board of the Fire Underwriters and the LLA Electrical Inspection Agency.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Councilmember Miller Herrera. Is there a second, please?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Larimore. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo absent. Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, Resolution 14116 passes. Resolution 14216.
Award bid opened on Thursday, May 5th, 2016 for the transportation and disposal of processed ground yard waste to CPL Agri-Cycle LLC, 4 Open Square Way, Suite 421, Holyoke, Massachusetts, 01040.
May I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Herrera, second by Councilmember Larimore. Yes?
Yes, second it.
Anyone on the question? Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo is absent. Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Very good. Resolution 14316.
Authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Schenectady Musical Union, Local 85-133, 191 Waters Road, Greenwich, New York, 12834, in the amount of $3,215 to provide music for the 2016 Summer Concert Series held at the Rotterdam Senior Center, 2639 Hamburg Street, Schenectady, New York, 12303, on Monday evenings beginning June 6, 2016, and ending August 29, 2016.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Councilmember Miller Herrera. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Larimore. On the question, I would just like everyone to know that we do have a schedule of all the concerts. I believe it's already on the town website. And the summer concerts again begin, they're Monday evenings. They begin on June 6th and end on August 29th. So throughout the summer. June 6th is the Lena Harrison Quartet. June 13th is the Tommy G Quartet. June 20th is Mike Purcell and Friends. June 27th is our town jazz band. July 11th is, this is July 4th is our Independence Day, so we won't have one there. July 11th, town band is our town jazz band. July 18th is the Charlie Smith's Blues Band. July 25th, again, our town jazz band. August 1st is Shenanigans. August 8th is the Dino Semino Quintet. He used to be a quartet. Anyone know? Just kidding, I know Dino. Maybe he added something. August 15th is the Signature Brass Quintet. August 22nd is the Joe Sorrentino Quartet. And August 29th is Dave Lambert and the Ragtime Windjammers. So that's where we are for that. So it's, and the concerts are all free to residents that be held at the Rotterdam Senior Center from 7 p.m. To 8:30 p.m. And in clement weather, the concerts will be held indoors in the Senior Center. Again, just to reiterate that. So we have a motion by Councilmember Miller Herrera, second by Councilmember Larimore. Anyone on that question? Okay, Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo absent. Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, Resolution 14316 passes. Resolution 14416.
Authorize the supervisor to enter into agreements with Mohonasen Central School District located at 2072 Curry Road, Schenectady, New York, 12303, and Shelmont Central School District located at 4 Sabre Drive, Schenectady, New York, 12306, to staff a school resource officer, SRO, for their school resource program.
May I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Okay, motion by Councilman Miller Herrera. Is there a second, please? Okay, I'll second the motion. Okay, on the question?
I have something I'd like to say, Mr.
Yes.
Supervisor.
Please.
I think that overall, this is a good idea, but I think right now what we need to work on, first of all, is a major problem we have within the town fiscally. We need to not pass that on to the school district as well. We have our police officers, they do a great job, but their price tag on an annual salary increase is between around 12 to 18%, so say average 15% for each officer every year. I don't think that we should get into a resource officer and carry that on and give that burden also to the school district. We need to somehow come into the world of reality, and the police department needs to be more happy with like maybe a 6% raise, which to me is double what anybody in the continental US gets on a yearly salary pay raise. Most people get 2 to 3%. If we brought them down to even 6%, that's still double what anybody else is making. We cannot afford to do that, so I can't vote positively for things that go on unless something in this nature happens.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to go at the issue a completely different way. Although certainly the cost of the police department, a department that ends up expending almost every single dollar of the real property tax levy that's issued upon you in the A fund. But we've already talked about that. And yes, if you figure out their step increases plus their cost of living adjustment, their raises every year, yes, it's, well into the teens, possibly excessively. But there's a second way to look at this. And there was a way that we were looking at this last year. About 8-9 months ago, I had the opportunity to sit at a back table with the superintendents of both school districts, the business managers. I can't remember if it was the deputy chief or the chief, but there was brass from the police department there, and Councilman Lamore was there, and we were discussing how we were going to make the school resource officer program affordable for the town of Rotterdam. I believe that this is a critically important position to maintain if we can afford it. I think it's incredibly important in this day and age to have an officer not only as a liaison between the school and the police department, but also as a resource for the children that are there, and also it increases the level of safety that I feel sending my own children to the school district. That isn't my problem. My problem also isn't the quality of the services that are provided by the officers that have been selected to fill this role. Rather, it's cost. Let's discuss. The school districts have agreed to pay 70%, as they've done in the past. Of course, last year it was not the will of this board for it to be 70%. This contract needs to be renewed annually. Rather than renewing the contract, which would have failed, they simply just kept taking the service at the same rate and basically avoided negotiating with me and Councilor Moore a proper rate that they should be paying for the service that they've taken from the town of Rotterdam. Specifically, to find out whether, my negotiations last year were on point. I was hoping that the school districts would have come up from their 70% cost to maybe an 85% cost. But I wasn't exactly sure. So I asked the police department to do a little research for me. And what they told me is the school district does reimburse 70% of the total cost for officers. However, they also receive 87.7% of the service for the officer that goes to Shelmont because he's there. He's only available to the rest of the town of Rotterdam for 12.3% of the year. Actual days worked. And over at Mahonison, it's actually worse. They get 89.4% of that officer's time actually on the job, and they're only reimbursing 70%. If only children in the town of Rotterdam went to Mahonison and Shelmont, you would not find any objection up here whatsoever. None. Why? If I pay the cost in my January tax bill, or I pay the cost in my September tax bill, what difference does it make? It's a wash. But is that reality? Do children in Colony and Guilderland go to Mahonison? Yeah, they do. The children in Princetown and Duanesburg and Western Albany County and Eastern Montgomery County go to Shelmont. That's what their name is, Schenectady, Altamont, and Montgomery County School District, Shelmont. Yes, they do. So, what do those other municipalities kick in on their January tax bills towards this very important program that we have to find a way to support? Nothing. The town of Rotterdam pays 30%. The school district pays 70%. Colony, Guilderland, Duanesburg, Princetown, nothing. Zero. So just so everybody in the town is crystal clear on what's happening, we as residents of the town of Rotterdam have the right to pay for this program, and we pay for it out of our January taxes that nobody else does, and we have an opportunity to pay for it in our September taxes that we do share with those other school districts. And it is a distinction with a difference. We are up against a tax cap every single year. There are departments in this town that need money to make this town great. Any shifting of our expenses to other municipalities would not affect the quality of service that the children are receiving from the police department. It would not cut the officer's hours. It would not reduce his benefits. It would not change the dynamic. But what would it do? We would have money for some of the upgrades that the Parks Committee just came to us and asked for. We would have money for more programs for our seniors. An extra $100,000, you know what, goes a long way in this town. Considering we only collect $7.2 to $4 million a year, we're adding another several percentage points that we can end up spending. It's something that we should at least explore. I asked to explore it last year, and rather than a negotiation, we got, well, we're just going to do it anyways, even though it was not legislatively blessed by the last board. And I realize that come next meeting, this is going to end up passing, but it's not happening tonight.
Okay.
Mayor,
You want to go first?
I just want to say by not passing this, we're looking at having no reimbursement for 2 police officers who are already on our payroll. So we should consider that when we talk about whether we enter into an agreement with the school district or not. And that is to Mr. Lamore's point, I believe. As it relates to Mr. Villano's point, I'm not sure when we send students to go see programs in Guilderland and Colony that they send us a separate bill for the SROs in their schools. But I know they do have equivalent programs in their school districts. As someone who does not currently have children in either Mahonison or Shelmont, I feel that by having the SROs in the school and keeping our schools out of the headlines on a regular basis, we're keeping our property values up, which in the long run is very important. Other school districts are having significant issues with kids bringing weapons to schools, things like that. Our SROs, in my experience, do a wonderful job of intercepting these issues before they become a news story, before they turn into a problem, when they're just rumors on the street, because they're there. They know. And they know our kids. They know our grandkids. They know our neighbors. So while I am fully aware this is not going to pass tonight, I want everyone to know that that's my position as somebody who does pay my property tax bill and who does support that 70% reimbursement from my school district, who I also pay property taxes to ensure that the schools around the corner from my house are safe and that the children who live next door to me are safe.
So I think everyone is in agreement on one part of this, which is we all agree that the SROs are a phenomenal liaison for us, for the police department, for our schools, the students, safety of our students. The quality of the officers is not in question. And for myself, as a father of three, now my daughters are adults, they're out of Mohonasen, but I can tell you that there was always a sense of calm and safety knowing that there was a SRO at the schools. And my children went to Mohonasen, they went to Shama for some time, then we moved, my kids are in Mohonasen. But all my nieces and nephews are in Shama. I gladly pay an additional cost if that were needed myself. Secondly, I don't know how we would go out and make an attempt to Council Members Miller Herrera's point that there will be a lot of negotiating for us to go out to these other school districts or the other municipalities and have them attempt to come up with a reimbursement schedule for the number of students or residents that are within those municipalities. I just cannot see a better use, frankly, of our police officers. There's a lot of great uses for the police officers, don't misunderstand me. What they do is phenomenal. But to say that money for parks, we have park land funds for that, and you threw out $100,000 just to throw out the number, Councilmember Bolano. But the difference in your numbers between 70 and 87.7 or 89.4% wouldn't equal 100,000. But there would be some number there if you were to make some case for that. I understand what you're saying. But we also have to, as members of the board and for myself, when we are attempting to come up with an agreement, whether it's with the school districts or with another municipality, to provide some level of shared services, some other, I guess I want to say, protection for our residents of one kind or another. And it's not always going to be exactly what you want when you're negotiating. You always have a little give and take. Frankly, I think this is beyond 70%. The school districts are each reimbursing us 70%. I think that that's a phenomenal reimbursement rate for what our officers are doing there. And as by the contract, when you're considering did you have something you want to say, Ms. Longman?
Oh, I was just saying, when you're getting 70%, when they're at the school 85%, that's not really that's not a wash. That's
But let's say
different. It's a difference of 15%.
Okay. Let me play a little devil's advocate for you on this then. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that we were to tell the schools we only want our officers there 70% of the time, and rather than be there at an athletic event, a dance, or some other school-sponsored event, we tell them, I'm sorry, but we can't have an officer there, even though you want one there. And God forbid something were to occur, we have someone there on site. I mean, frankly, I think that this really goes a little bit beyond. Do you have something else you want to say?
I was just saying you can have somebody on call.
On call. Okay, I'm not even going to go there. But I appreciate everyone's sentiments here. Ms. Marco, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Christo is absent. Mr. Lamore?
No.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Volano?
No.
Mr. Thomasone?
Yes.
2 yes, 2 no, 1 absent, does not pass.
Does not. 144, 16. Anything else? I'm just making notes for Diane and Dana here, so they know. Okay. Resolution 145-16.
Authorize comptroller to declare certain equipment obsolete.
May I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Larmore, second by Councilmember Bolano. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo absent, Mr. Lamore,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Valano,
Yes.
Mr. Thomason,
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, Resolution 145-16 passes. Resolution 146-16.
Authorize budget transfers by the town controller to various accounts for 2016.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Councilmember Miller Herrera. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Larmore. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo absent, Mr. Lamore,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Valano,
Yes.
Mr. Thomason,
Yes.
4 yes, 1
Okay,
absent.
Resolution 146-16 passes. Resolution 147-16.
Authorize the supervisor to sign a consignment and online auction agreement with Collar City Auctions Realty and Management Incorporated, 9423 Western Turnpike, Delancey, New York, 12053, for auctioneer and related services for 2016 to auction all equipment and materials declared obsolete by the town board, Rotterdam Town Board, sorry.
No worries, thank you. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Councilmember Miller Herrera. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Larmore. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, please call the roll.
Mr. Christo absent, Mr. Lamore,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera,
Yes.
Mr. Valano,
Yes.
Mr. Thomason,
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, Resolution 147-16 passes. Okay, anyone have anything under committee reports or miscellaneous this evening?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor.
Go ahead, sir.
Two things. Since you asked how would we end up working out an arrangement with the other districts if that was ever going to be considered, there's actually two simple, very simple ways to do it that wouldn't take more than 10 minutes to figure out. You could go to each of the assessor's offices and ask for an assessment roll based upon school district within their individual municipalities. It's a simple run report. It's certainly one that's available to me as a broker as well as an attorney. You would find out the assessed value in Colony, Guilderland, and Rotterdam, and that would be their percentages that they would pay out of the 30%. Or the simpler way to do it is just have the district pick up 100% of the cost. And then the officer could be there 100% of the time, including security over the summer, where they have things like football double schedules, where they have soccer practice, where they have other use of the property. Having an officer there wouldn't go completely wasted. On a secondary issue, one that has been near and dear to my heart, one that ultimately ended up causing me, along with Councilman Lamore, to ask for the audit of the town of Rotterdam to take place. Everybody knows, because I brought up a couple of times, that Troy recently got audited. And the state controller's office ended up putting the screws to the city of Troy for exactly what I said was going on here. And in one of their mechanisms to right the past wrongs, the Troy City Council ended up recently passing legislation that possibly the town of Rotterdam should consider. Just briefly summarizing from an article that was in the Troy Record back on May 8th. Members of the City Council overwhelmingly approved Thursday night a change to the city charter that will make it more difficult to tap into the city's water and sewer funds to plug gaps elsewhere in the budget, which is exactly what we've been doing here in the past. By a 7-2 vote, the council approved a local law that would change the charter to require a 2/3 vote by council members to allow any transfer of money outside of those funds, as well as a public hearing before the council can take that action. The council president has said we have to stop this practice. We have to finally come to the realization we can't keep doing things the way they've done in the past. And then it goes on to talk about the $6.4 million that have been taken out of those funds. On the table, backed by the deputy chief, and also that's been passed out to the board members up here, is a copy of exactly that legislation, stopping these bad practices from occurring going forward. I think if it was brought to the public's attention in advance and required a public hearing, thus at least 2 meetings time before these transfers could take place, and a supermajority of the board to grant such transfers, we wouldn't be in the situation where we are now, where the town of Rotterdam keeps having me and Councilman Lamore go to various departments to discuss their needs and their desire to bond to satisfy those needs. These lockbox accounts, particularly for the sewers, would have been incredibly helpful in paying for the upgrades that are so desperately needed down there. Passing legislation very similar to what's been presented right here would be in the best interest of this town going forward. And also, ultimately, when the auditors do come here, it would make it look like we are being very proactive to prevent these things from happening in the future. And I would hope that the town attorney would consider this and provide me a brief of how to make this happen, whether or not the legislation ultimately carries. Is that something that can be produced for me, Counselor? A brief of how to go about this type of legislation on a town level as opposed to a city level.
I think you should direct that question to me right now, if you
Okay.
don't mind. First of all, what has occurred in Troy is 180 degrees from whatever it is that you believe it is, Joe. I'm sorry.
It's not. It's,
We can all do head shakes. It works sometimes. And it works sometimes. More importantly, this is talking about an unencumbered balance and appropriation. I really don't want to go through the specifics here right now. We can talk about this during an agenda meeting, frankly, or during a work session, perhaps, over the next month or two. More importantly, I think, is that your continual assertion that if we just did things a little differently, we'd have that extra $1 million or $2 million to fix the sewer plant, is ludicrous. Because, and again, I'm not finger pointing, I'm just stating a fact. You and Councilmember Larmore were both here for 2 years.
And we had no power, really.
Forget the power, that's a cop-out.
That's the only way you get things
Well,
done.
that is a complete cop-out, complete cop-out.
Yeah.
You have an obligation to the taxpayers, you have an obligation to the community as a council member. The first time you went to the sewer plant was a couple months ago. We went there, we were all there. 3 of us, Mr. Christou, I know that
And I
Ms.
agree
Miller
with what needs to
Herrera.
be done with that.
Let me, if you don't mind, I'll finish first, and then you can carry on for a while. And if you had done that 2 years ago when you first became council members, you could have appealed to the board at that time to start allocating some other resources, or maybe the only way you could really have that additional money, frankly, is you would have had to increase the taxes to the sewer taxpayer and tell them that you were going to utilize that money for capital projects. And you would have to go out and tell the people, we're going to increase your taxes for them. Now, understanding that we have this problem, I'm coming into office here saying, this is a problem. We all acknowledge it's a problem. We've all been there. There are a couple of items on that list of $2 million worth of maintenance that needs to happen at that plant that we have to address now, because that equipment is breaking down. And so this next meeting, you'll see some moves to do that from sewer reserves to start some of these projects there, because they have to be done. We cannot wait for the bond. We can't wait for the July or August to come around to get that work done. So I appreciate your passion to want to do the right thing, but in my view, the way to do the right thing is also to engage personnel in the town, to speak with personnel in the town, to speak to us collectively as a board, and work these things out, whatever they may be, whatever differences we may have. By trying to make the case that we are doing what Troy did is a complete fabrication. They took huge dollars from reserve funds. It wasn't just for reallocation of staff time, as we do, which is a justifiable, as let me say this, as the
It's
comptroller's
never been
office,
justified.
excuse me, yes it has. As the comptroller's office has already given guidance in the letter that they sent to us, which said, we speak with the comptroller's office on a regular basis. We give them guidance. They're doing as we told them to do. Our auditors, who have been hired by the city of Troy, that you voted no to accept their audit report for the town, are the ones that the city of Troy hired to assist them with their audit from the state comptroller's office. So the point of the matter is this, is that I don't want to use incendiary language, but that's kind of what I'm feeling here from the two of you. We have to stop this. You need to stop, we need to move forward and get things done for the town in total. And that's all I have to say on that. Did you want something else?
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Please, go
Supervisor.
ahead.
First of all, we have not said that this group of people now have done anything like that. This happened previously with the last group, and we weren't able to work with them whatsoever. And you got to remember, the supervisor determines what's on the agenda. So if he doesn't want to do any of that stuff, we can talk till kingdom come, and we're not going to get any of that work done. And that's what the problem was. You guys haven't done the things that we were saying happened, but they happened, and they are not, we're not done the right way, according to all the different, we had many different cases that were exactly like what was going on. Like I said, it's not you guys doing it now, but it was done. So all we're saying is what was done in the past, we don't want to see happen again.
Because we're coming up on budget season, and I expect to see those same kind of transfers. And doing things the way they did in the past. When John Polino was here, and he arbitrarily made up numbers and backed into the figures that needed to be transferred to balance the budget, that isn't the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to do it on an annual basis, hour for hour, what each employee does for those funds. And the town of Rotterdam has never done it, which has been verified by the controller's office, that we have never actually done it that way.
Again, you're saying something that is not accurate. I apologize, but it's not accurate. The comptroller's office has given guidance to our comptroller's office, and we have done this same process now for years.
We've only did it once.
The allocations might be different. The timing might be different, but it's my understanding that it's been the same.
It has been, and that's the problem. You're supposed to do it every year. You're allowed to use estimates once.
And you're also supposed to, when you're trying to transfer money from one department to another for people's working in different departments, that is, you're supposed to on a weekly basis have the time cards to justify that, and something from the supervisor that they work these hours or that hours, and that's supposed to be done weekly basis, not whenever you feel like it. That's supposed to be done and kept up for the whole year.
And it's never
What is
done.
your authority for that?
All the case law that we ended up attaching to our audit request that you have a copy of.
Which is different than the claim that you made, frankly.
Right.
No, it's exactly the same.
It is not exactly the same.
It is.
It's not. All right,
I
let's
would
move
just,
on. Go ahead.
before we
Please.
move on,
Please.
Mr. Larimore, you say that you're discussing things that have happened in the past and you felt powerless. I'm not sure why you still feel powerless. We, and I speak in the we as Evan, Steve, and I have been open to discussing everything and anything with you and Mr. Villano. In fact, I think we've been trying to work together pretty well. We voted unanimously on the majority of the things that cross this table.
The majority of
Coming up when the
things-
camera's on to talk about things for the first time doesn't encourage positive discourse or making progress, because frankly, I'd love to be able to go back, do some research, and come to an agreement on some of these things, whether it's the percentages of SROs, whether it's how we're dealing with our allocations for positions. These are things we should be able to have an educated conversation about, not have it thrown out there with, as Steve says, inflammatory language to make a point that may or may not be correct.
Well, the one problem is, though, for the majority of it, like you said, the majority of things that aren't controversial, we have no problem, we all get along. But things that are really, really important issues, we're on the opposite ends of it, and we're never gonna meet the middle, I don't think.
I don't know that that's true.
I haven't.
I don't-
I've had conversations with both of you about things that frankly I had a different position walking in on, and after speaking with you and doing some research on it, I thought had some merit. But without having those conversations and walking in here and having these huge debates, we're not making any progress for our town. We're doing them a disservice. So from my point of view, I would appreciate the two of you wanted to have conversations about these things, whether it's an email, hey, what about this? Hey, what about discussing an 85% reimbursement for the SROs instead of walking in here now? I mean, we've been sitting together since 5:30, and the first time I heard that was 10 minutes ago.
I don't practice politics behind closed doors. I do all
Our
my
agenda
research.
meetings are open to the public. An email between you and me or whatever saying, hey, what are your thoughts on this? It's not about politics, it's about you sharing an idea that you think has merit and value. I mean, why can't we work together on these things? We've worked together on other things.
Of course we have, and I knew what was on the agenda, and I did the research to back up my discussion tonight.
You did, but you didn't present your discussion in any context before that. I mean, I assumed that you would take a position on the SROs, but I didn't know you were going to take a position of, well, there should be more reimbursements. Frankly, I think that's a great discussion to have. But it's a discussion we're not having because
Would you
this is the
support a
first
higher
time.
percentage?
I would support looking at it.
Okay.
I'd support what we could conceivably negotiate.
Right.
And I think that's where we have to, where I think that part of the veracity of our words is that you come to a point where if the school districts are saying 70% is what they're going to give us and that's their final number, how far higher can we go?
Well, we tried to do that last year.
My point is with that, I apologize, let me just finish one thing, is that if we all agree that the service is valuable,
Yes, and
and
it
the
is.
maximum, and right, so there we agree. And at the maximum that they're going to give us is 70%. Or they could tell us, we're gonna do 0. Then what would we do? Let me ask, would you want the SROs in the schools?
No. If the school district will not pay,
Okay.
no.
The school districts would not pay, you would not want them in there. Okay, all right. Anyone else have anything other on the miscellaneous or committee reports this evening?
No, I think that's
No? Okay. Ms. Marco, we don't have anything else, right, on the executive session? Either, we're good? Okay. I meant to say, I'm sorry, Ms. McGill. May I have a motion for adjournment, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Ms. Miller Herrera for a adjournment. Second, please.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Larimore. All in favor?
I.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much for coming this evening.